Let's talk about the Florida Mayhem. Uh, this team, this team kind of sucks, to put it bluntly. Um, they look pretty good there for like this 2.5 week span here, towards the end of stage two. They barely lost to Houston. They beat Dallas. They beat Valiant. Barely lost to Gladiators, and then they beat my former team, the San Francisco Shock. Who am I, by the way? I'm Brad, former head coach of the Shock, former owner of Selfless Gaming. How's it going? Nice to meet you. But yeah, they had a good run there for about 2.5 weeks, and then after that, they proceeded to lose 11 of the next 13 games. This is updated through stage three here, but actually they're 0-2 so far in stage four. Um, this week they won 0 maps, they lost 7, and they tied 1. So it's looking pretty rough for Florida right now. Despite the roster changes, their win rate hasn't really changed much at all. Um, they just continue to not perform. So why is that? That's what this video is going to focus on. We're going to narrow it down to three things, I guess. We're going to talk about three mistakes that Florida made this week. Um, these are not new mistakes for Florida. They're certainly not exclusive to Florida. Many teams make these mistakes. Um, but it's been going on for a while. So really wanted to make a video about it. And I guess we'll cook some other team in some other video maybe next week. All right, so the first mistake that Florida made this week, and I guess many other weeks, is their willingness, especially on defense, to give up space for free. You can see they're all turtled on top of each other here on top Griffin behind a shield. Maniton's going to go forward just to scout that initial rollout from Philly. Then he's going to fall back and join the party here shortly. Um, Normally, it's bad Overwatch to have 6 people, holding hands behind a shield like this. In this particular case, it's kind of okay because it's a choke in front of them that Philly has to go through, and they have to take spam and all that good stuff. So it's this is not a unique defense. Other teams have run the defense like this. Seoul ran the defense like this. They hold this forward Griffin position. Um, but many other teams have also opted for Winston diva defenses just because they want to have more control of the space around them. That said, the interesting thing that Florida does here is not so much that they have this defensive composition, it's what they do when they see the threats that are coming in. So they're going to scout that it's Tracer Genji dive coming for them as opposed to Widow or whatever. And you can see Sato jumps in the air. And the moment he lands, look, they're like already gone. Like the moment he leaped, they started to run away to the point. He didn't even, they didn't go to like try to mine him and hold that position or anything. I think they decided they'd rather fight behind the point instead. I think that's kind of a mistake. I mean, I definitely think that's a mistake. It's much easier to disengage inside the room where the rail tracks are and go for spam and fight your way back out than it is to fight from the point. The Junkrat's going to get far less value in his position there above the point than he is in the initial setup on top Griffin. Florida's probably thinking it's just harder to. They can see more from behind point. It's harder for them to get dope, so on and so forth. But the truth is, all Philly really needs to do to dive Florida's new position is to have some patience. You can see Carpe's going to go flank from the left. EQO is going to end up coming from Sato's right. Sato's going to go through the left middle here. And then the supports and the diva are going to go through the spawn, right? So let's just speed it up slightly. Just waiting for that surround to get in place. And you can see here that this dive is going to be just as good a dive as any. And in fact, this dive is better for Philly than what would have been the opening dive had Florida held that forward position, because all that Philly needs to accomplish to win here is to force Florida off this high ground position, and that's it. Um, if they get Florida to disengage, Florida's positioning is awful. They have to basically fight with their back to the water. They can't see on high ground. They can't shoot back at the tanks that just spent their shifts. Now the tanks who no longer have mobility, it doesn't matter because they have LOS protection from the high ground and they can get healed up and then start forcing the point. Not to mention controlling the spawn so that if they got any picks in the process, now Florida's respawners can't get back to join the fight without getting isolated by like a high mobility dive offense that Philly has. So this is just a very difficult position for Florida to be in. This situation right here, this is just awful for them. And if I were to play this out, you'll see that Philly does win the fight. It's a bit more scrappy than what it should be because Philly gets a little greedy, but ultimately they do win just because they're so far ahead. Even right now in this position, they're so far ahead. So this is not new for Florida. In fact, this tendency is a recurring theme. This is from stage 3, week 5 against the Shock. You can see they're playing the standard Orisa Widow Junkrat defense here on the forward platform. Everything they're doing here is meta. Um, it's all good so far. Manatin's defending the flank from Architect here, just for a little bit, not too long. No one's taken any real damage yet. Nothing much has happened. The Shock you can see them here if you can't see it. They basically done like a non-committal jump here, just to like get in and create space. And that alone, even though no real damage was done, that alone was enough to force Florida to feel like they needed to disengage back to the point and turtle up in this room underneath this top platform here. You can see side players, instead of grappling across, is going to drop and grapple into the room. Everybody's in here right now. And honestly, this situation for Florida is horrible. Look, they've done no real damage. Look at Tavik's ult charge, right? Only 11%. That's not what's supposed to happen when you run this comp. When you run this comp, you're supposed to hold your ground, and when the tanks jump you, they're like free ult charge for this Junkrat. And then eventually, if you're on offense, you like lose to a tire, and you lose to just overwhelming damage because it's just so hard to dive. Instead, Florida puts themselves in this room, and the only thing that needs to happen now for the Shock to win is for them to not be dumb. If they are smart and they are patient and they wait for their cooldowns, if they wait for Winston Bubble or they wait for Genji Deflect or whatever it is that they need to win this fight, build up a little bit of Matrix or something. That's all they need to win this fight. Florida has no positioning here to do anything other than punish people who chase them without any cooldowns. So that's exactly what's going to happen here. I mean, look at this. Architect with the deflect, tons of damage, dash, reset, dash again, reset, so on and so forth. That's what happens when you give up all your space. Look at this. Same week, stage 3, the previous match against Gladiators, the second point defensive setup. This is the default setup for Florida Mayhem. Even though they have a Junkrat and they should be wanting to spam this choke over here and get damage in early, they choose instead to set up all the way here in the back. 5 people here in the back in this one little corner, giving up all of this space for free, all of it. The Tracer out here alone is not going to do anything. So, if Gladiators wants to, if they see what's going on, they can very easily take their Zen all the way over here. Just set them over here. You can get an escort from the Tracer if we're worried about Saya player. You get your Zen in this position, you're already like in an amazing spot, okay? Among other things. Now, Florida does happen to do okay with this defense against Gladiators. They end up losing the map, but they hold the second point for quite a while. But the same setup against the Shock a few days later fails miserably. So, just in general, giving up this amount of space basically means you're relying on your opponent to play bad instead of you being able to play good. You really have no control of your own destiny if you do this. It's literally, hoping that the enemy feeds, jumps into you and feeds. So here we have one last example. This is from stage 4, week 1. New York's rolling out with a double sniper comp. Florida has this Junkrat Widow comp with Ryan Zarya. And immediately, the Ryan is the only one forward. Everybody else is turtling up at Arch. Ryan's going to fall back there soon. They're giving up all of this high ground for free. Libero here has a double healing pocket so that he can take on this Junkrat forever. The Junkrat, it's not going to one-shot him, and the Libero is going to get healed up instantly. You'll see it happen multiple times here. Um, while all of this is going on, you can see right here, there's Winston flanking on the high ground already. D.Va is also over here on the high ground somewhere. Rather than fighting Libero here, who's got the double healing pocket, somebody really should be doing something about this Winston alone on a flank with no healing. Um, what actually happens is Logix, who was Widow up top, ends up dropping down to get away from the Winston, as opposed to what should really happen, which is either Mercy or Junkrat or both should probably go in the high ground and try to deal with the Winston, with the Widow. Certainly the Mercy. Instead, we end up in a situation where they've given up the high ground. They've given up all the angles. They're all on top of each other. I mean, look at this. Widow is now in Hotel trying to kill Libero. So Widow and Junkrat are basically trying to kill a Hanzo instead of tanks. And it's sort of a futile exercise, even to the point where now what's going to happen is Mercy gets scattered. It's just a disastrous position that Florida's put themselves in. And it's not like most offenses are designed to push you into this corner eventually, right? Like New York, the goal of New York's offensive composition is to create exactly this scenario, okay? The disappointing part is that Florida allowed them to do it with no resistance whatsoever. They just let them do it for free. So the second mistake that Florida makes this week, other than giving up too much space too freely, is not recognizing when their composition is hard countered by the enemy's team composition, right? So in this particular case, a full minute has passed. Florida is still running double sniper. This is old Hanzo, right? So not a very good flanker, way less mobility overall. Double sniper into single sniper with an Orisa shield. Now, normally running even one sniper into this is questionable, but running two, especially the old Hanzo and not the new Hanzo, is really, really questionable. And if you were to watch this, what you would see for basically 3 minutes is snipers looking for angles that they never quite get, and then ending up shooting at a shield that never quite dies, right? And then eventually, with 1 minute left to go, they switch to like Tracer or Sombra Dive or something like that. But really, it should have been something that's recognized basically on the rollout and then immediately go back to spawn and switch to some sort of dive-based composition. Especially since this is a very standard defense that should have been seen in scrims. So, not exactly sure what happened here. I guess they must have had some success with it in scrims before, but to me, it's not surprising at all to see this offense fail. So, not sure where they found that success. All right, so the third mistake that Florida made this week is basically not utilizing the abilities of the heroes to their full extent. Um, so in this particular case, if you look at Hanzo up here, Hanzo's been hogging this spot up here for the full minute so far, and he's going to continue to hog this spot for the next 30 seconds or so. Widow's grappling up here right now, actually. So now they're both kind of fighting over the spot. You see them, can't quite see properly, but they're both up here. Okay. So that's not good. Your snipers shouldn't be playing the same angle together. Really, this spot's better served for the Widow. The Hanzo should be moving in through the ground. Instead, they do it backwards. They do the opposite. Widow goes down here for a pick. The problem with Widow going down here for a pick is that even if he gets this pick, like the pick through this like little doorway here on a Zen, that's probably going to get rezzed. Even if that kill goes through, it's going to get rezzed. Jonak doesn't take a headshot, he takes a body shot, but it wouldn't have mattered either way. it's very difficult for Hanzo to get a pick from that high ground spot where he is. He's much better off like pushing in through that room on the right here and going for some kind of BS scatter shot or something of that nature. Um, you know, the Widow should be playing the longer angle, and the Hanzo should be going for the shorter range damage. So that's a mismatch. Quick side note, but look at where Libero is. This is what Libero is so good at. Finding these weird spots where you can't see him, but he's got all the spam angles figured out. Libero is literally spamming the choke from this spot over here. He has no idea what he's shooting at. He's just trusting the spam and trusting the calls of his teammates to tell him when to stop spamming. Uh, really cool stuff. Libero does this kind of thing all the time. That's why he's the best Junkrat in the league, probably, in my opinion. Um, it's not an aggressive Junkrat like EQO, but it's still like amazing in its own right. Okay, so just moving on here real quick. Gonna wrap this up, but the other thing that Hanzo has going for him is Sonic Arrow, so he can see when there's a Winston on the other side of this door, right? And even if he doesn't have the Sonic Arrow, like you're gonna see it come up here in just a moment. But Florida's gonna push in through the main choke, and you drop a Winston bubble, and Janice over here, right? This should be a killable target. If you have a Hanzo on your team, this is something that you should be looking for. And on the very initial rollout of this map, you didn't see it, but Florida Mayhem has been constantly putting sonic arrows into this wall to see if there's tanks here. And then they see that there are tanks there, and usually a Winston alone, and then they do nothing about it. The first step is usually to pressure this Winston and force him out somehow. So what's going to happen here is tanks are going to work their way in. Meko is now matrixing like damage, right? That means he's using it up. If Awesome Guy drops a bubble here and Hanzo walks forward with a damage boost, he can one-shot this Winston with a scatter. Like 100% one-shot him. He just has to get close enough that the bubble won't stop it. And especially with this matrix being depleted and not available to stop the scatter, it's going to work. But they never do it. And this is, again, not utilizing the attributes of Hanzo in order to get a free kill. So, they're misusing the range. They're not going for alternative angles with the double sniper, which means they're basically LOS'd a lot. And then they're not taking advantage of Sonic Arrow to scout, or if they do scout, not following up on the intel by trying to get good scatters off. So, just a disappointing use of Hanzo overall. Not like they put him into the comp, but they didn't really think about what his strengths are and more of the ways they can use him other than just trying to get a headshot from a long range distance. Anyways, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments what team you would like me to cook next. I know this was a little savage. If it came off that way, I didn't mean it to be. I'm sorry. Uh, I love the Florida Mayhem, and I have friends in the Florida Mayhem. So sorry, guys. But I just wanted to make a video, I guess, and help out how I could. Hope you liked it, guys. See you soon.